Hello, and welcome to the Diva Talks live show. I am your host, the Diva. And tonight, my special guest, I can't wait to do this interview, is none other than Mr. Joe Moore. Hey, Joe.
Hey, how are y'all tonight?
I am good. The question is, how are you?
I'm feeling great. Glad to be here.
Good. Well, glad to have you. And, taking time out of your busy schedule because I do know that you are busy, but I just can't wait to dig in and let you speak about who you are and let the world know who you are for those who don't. So, Mr. Joe, tell us who you are and all about your family and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, my name is Joel Seymour. I am a Buffalonian, east side of Buffalo, born and bred. Currently, I'm a practicing attorney. A little bit about my background. I'm a graduate of Howard University. I went there in '99, got my chemical engineering degree. I've got an MBA from Case Western Reserve, and I have a law degree from the Ohio State University. I've been practicing law for about 10 years, done some different types of law. Um, I've done a bit of criminal law. I have done municipal law with the city of Buffalo. I have done educational law and arbitration with Buffalo Public Schools. And currently, I'm an attorney with the Erie County Surrogate Court, where we handle wills, trusts, things of that nature. That's me on the professional side. I have a 6-year-old son, soon to be 7. Um, and in addition to being a father, I like to work out. I enjoy reading, running, and all sorts of nerdy other things, crossword puzzles and stuff like that. I've actually read some of the books behind me, not all of them, but I'm working on it. And that's pretty much me.
Wow, that now that's a resume. That is a resume. And now, some people don't like to tell their age or what have you, but the resume that you have, I don't think people will believe how old you are. Would you mind sharing?
Happily. I am 39, soon to be 40 in August.
My. I mean, kudos to you. That is awesome. I
Thank
mean,
you so much.
totally awesome. So now I when I decided to interview you and I asked you for the interview, I knew that you were running for city court judge.
Hmm.
Why would you want to run for city court judge? One question.
Hmm.
And number two, why should we vote for Mr. Joel Moore?
So, two very good questions. The first one, why I want to run. So, you take a look at the lay of the land, right? We're coming off 2021. We're coming off of George Floyd, and really, George Floyd is just an example of a name that happens every day. It's just one we know about, right? We have way too many African Americans in general, particularly African American males, minority males that are running through the criminal justice system.
Mhm.
Now, I'm a big proponent in this idea that you have to be involved in the system. You have to be a piece of the system in order to respect the system. So if we're asking these folks to come in front of judges and respect their authority, they need to see themselves as part of the system. They need to see themselves in the attorneys that are there. They need to see themselves in the judges that are there. They need to see themselves in the court officers that are there. But more so, you need an individual on the bench that they can relate to a little bit, right? That comes from where they come from, that has similar experiences. When they're sharing their struggles, you want someone up there who can say, I don't just sympathize with what you're telling me, I empathize with your
Mm.
experience. I know what it's like to interact with the police officers and be uncomfortable. I know what it's like to be pulled over and think I'm being treated unfairly. I know what it's like to be an African American male or a brown skinned male in this country. Um, I can relate to that. I understand that perhaps you've done something wrong, but the question becomes, what types of things can we do to get you back on the straight and narrow, get you back doing something productive, get you back doing something that's good for both you and the community, get you back toward servicing your community in a way that helps it, that helps you, that helps all of us. So you want someone with that thinking, and I think that I bring that kind of thinking. In addition to that, with my engineering background, I kind of have a rare perspective on looking at things that you don't often find in the law. So when I'm doing an analysis of a situation, I'm trying to break this thing down into its little nuances, its little parts, right? What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? How can we improve something here? How can we fix something? Adjust something here, so that the product ultimately comes out as a better product than it has been coming out. In this case, what that looks like is a fairer, more sensitive justice system via the judge on the bench. So that's why I want to be a judge. I bring that. One example I give, I went to the Park School of Buffalo from third grade to senior year, right? Got a very good education, and appreciate that opportunity.
Awesome.
One day, when I was probably in middle school, I happened to be walking away from campus and walking back to our campus. I'd just gone to the store. An unmarked police car pulled up, and they asked me, what are you doing around here, basically, right? Now, to give you guys some background, if you don't know, this is Snyder, New York, very white and typically affluent area, right? So they see this, African-American male, probably preteen or teen, saying, what are you doing here? So I told him, I'm going back to school. I'm on stage crew for this play, yada, yada, yada. So they pick me up and they take me back to school and proceed to verify what I actually told them before they, let me on my way. Now, I say this to say that, again, I have a 6-year-old son. I don't want him to have to tell a story like that in 10 years. I don't want him to have the experience of being profiled, of being scared, of being picked up by some authority who allegedly is doing the right thing, but really is just harassing a young African-American who seems to be out of place in their opinion. So my interest is in changing the narrative so that the next group tells a very different story, a more uplifting story, a story of equality, and one that hopefully is a much more comforting and justice-based one than the story I just told.
Wow. What? Wow. You just really just took my breath away. Excuse me. I had a mint and it went down the wrong way. So I'm coughing. Never again. But what I appreciate about you is because before I went to interview you, you're on social media. You have an open page, and I like that because we get to see who the real Joe is. What do you think about social media, and how does that reflect upon you? Do you think that it helps you, hurts you? How do you reflect on that?
So I think social media is a great thing, honestly. One of the big things that you run into when you're running is you need to get your face, your message, your voice out there to the masses for them to hear you. Traditionally, without social media, you've had to rely on the dollars and cents that comes with radio, the dollars and cents that comes with TV, the dollars and cents that comes with sending out pamphlets and creating this narrative, controlling what people can see. One great thing about social media, and I don't love social media across the board, but one great thing about it is your ability to go directly to the people. And I'm actually reminded of a story I heard recently. You all know Naomi Osaka, who's the tennis player. Right. Just, was in the French Open, decided not to move forward because she was stressed out about, the mainstream media interviewing her directly after her matches. And she said she released her message that she was going to step down, not on NBC, not on ESPN. She releases it on social media, and she has over 1 million followers. She has more access to her followers without a buffer in between than any of those outlets could provide for her. And that's a beautiful thing, to have your message under your control.
Right.
That's a beautiful thing. So I do like that about social media.
Awesome. Well, being on your page, I noticed that you put up a stat about some trickery in politics, which we know that's not a secret, that happens. But I read up on it. I know exactly what was going on, but it may be some people who don't know. So if you could just explain to us a little bit about what happened with the trickery is what I'm talking about. You can explain a little bit better exactly what happened back in May, I believe it was.
Sure. So when you're doing this running for judge thing, and this is my first go round, so I'm learning a lot, still have a lot to learn, but I was trying to get the Democratic line, right? That means for primaries that you guys are voting now and we'll vote on the 22nd, I wanted my name to appear as an option among other individuals, right? So I handed in what's called a Democratic designating petition. This year, because of COVID, we needed 600 signatures. I collected 1,890 signatures. Now, speeding through the story, the Board of Elections will take a look at this. Normally, they knock off a few because someone lives outside of the city and they can't sign your petition, or because they're a Republican and this is your Democratic designating petition, yada, yada, yada. Point is, at the end of the day, I have 1,040 good signatures out of the 600 I need. So I have 440 extra signatures. Somebody, and I'll put that in quotes, right, with an interest in removing me from the ballot to prevent competition, charges me with irregular signatures, basically, and takes me to court, right? And they say, well, you've signed the bottom of these particular sheets, but there seems to be something odd about it. So they base it on these two affidavits. And what the affidavits say, a young lady says, well, I signed Joel's petition, but when I signed it, he was across the street. And based on the sheet that he signed, he said I was in front of him. That's what she says. The second allegation is a guy who says, well, my name's on the sheet, but I never signed the sheet. Now, the second allegation is the husband of the first person. So we're talking a husband and a wife. However they find these individuals, mind you, I handed in 1,890 signatures. They found these two individuals who were willing to say, I have an issue with Joel's petitions, and here's why. So they do that. They take me to court. The court backs them, basically arguing that if there's one irregularity, that is sufficient to disregard the 1,800 and whatever the number is, 78 other people who have supported Joel in this. So long story short, they end up removing my entire Democratic designating petition. So when you all go vote on the 22nd, you won't see my name if you're voting in the Democratic primary. Now, the sad part about that, obviously for me, is that Buffalo is a very blue city. Who wins the Democratic nominating, or who wins the Democratic position? In this case, you guys have 3 votes. Who wins that ultimately typically wins the election. So they knew that in a year where, the profile of African Americans and the injustice that happens to African Americans is very front and center.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would struggle with multiple African Americans on the ballot. So they made sure that only one made it, and it happened to be someone that the Democratic Party endorsed. Now, the other 2 individuals that the Democratic Party endorsed, and again, I'm not saying good, bad, and different. Right. The other 2 individuals are white women. And so the Democratic Party has nominated 2 white women and 1 African-American male. Now, if you guys know the numbers, African-Americans have the power in Buffalo to decide really who does any of this stuff, be it mayor, be it judge, be it anything like that. So the game that seems to be played is, let's make sure they don't make the ones we don't want. Let's make sure they don't make the ballot for the Democratic ballot primaries. And then that way we won't have to worry about it, because what they assume is in November, all the Democrats will come and vote straight Democratic line. And the Democrats, whoever wins the Democratic primaries ultimately wins. So that is a game that's played. That's a game that's often played successfully, because sometimes we aren't challenging and paying attention to the board to make sure that it's not just the person that the Democrats have nominated, but it's really the person who can best represent our community. And that's the strategy that I'm being faced with at this point.
Wow. That's sad. That's really sad. But that is the world that we live in, So now, with this happening to you now, what do you think your chances are, or what are you trying? What's your game plan for November?
So, interestingly enough, I randomly have another line right now. I'm going to say this. I don't want people to get too excited when I say this. I have the conservative line as well. And there's no primary in the conservative line, so I'll be on the conservative line in November. I am a Democrat, guys. I'm not a conservative. But what happens sometimes is you get endorsements from these other groups that were saying, out of the candidates that are out there, I'm willing to support him, or I'm willing to support her. That, in this case, that conservative line actually saved me from being eliminated altogether, because I was able to get the Democratic line. So what I would need is you all simply to go in November and say, I know that he's not on the Democratic line, but I know Joel. I've heard him. I like the way he speaks. I like the way he presents himself. I like the way, what he's about. Go down 3 lines and just look for my name, and that's the person you vote. You use one of your votes to support me instead of whoever's on the Democratic line. The other option is, and this is a little bit more tricky, not that the conservative isn't a very tricky thing. You guys can write in whoever you want to, and that includes the primaries and in November. So there's a space down there. If you want to write me in, you can write Joel Seymour, and that will count in my favor. If by some chance enough people were willing to write me in as compared to the number of votes that the other people get, I would actually be on the Democratic line come November. Really? So those are 2 options out there for the community.
That I never knew that.
A lot of people
I learned that today.
Yep, a lot of people don't, but that is one of the ways that they try and control the vote. But you can anytime, whether they're on the ballot or not, you all, and this isn't just my race, this isn't any race. If you guys know a good candidate and you want to put them in there, you can put that name in there. Wow.
Yeah. That is very well. I already told you, when we were off camera, you have my vote. I'm definitely voting for you. And are you going to be doing a lot of campaigning? Are you going to be able to campaign? How does that work?
So I can campaign because I'm still a candidate. So my thought was this: when I got knocked off of the Democratic primaries, I stepped back and I said, there's a sheriff's race out there, there's a mayoral race out there, there's some other things, and because I'm not on the primary, anyone's primary ballot, it makes more sense for our community to be paying attention to those right now and making sure that we have strong candidates to move into November. So after the primaries, we'll be back out. Trying to do all the things that folks do, fundraise, meet people, see if we can make this thing happen from the conservative line. Again, it's a very tough lift from the conservative line. But I tell people this, this Buffalo City Court position is a 10-year position. We have the option to benefit from a good choice for 10 years. Conversely, we can suffer from a bad choice. When you have your husband, your son, your daughter, your brother, people appearing in front of these judges, it matters that they understand them, not just in a theoretical sense, but in a substantive, I've been in your shoes, I am in your shoes, I know what it's like to be an African-American in Buffalo. Therefore, when you tell me what's going on, I can not only sympathize, but I can empathize with it. And you want that occupying the bench for 10 years. This year, some of you may know, Judge Russell retired just last year. Was a judge for over 20 years. Judge McLeod retired last year. Was a judge for over 20 years. And Judge Gibbons, who has been a judge for a long time, just moved up to a higher court. So that's actually 3 African Americans, 2 of which are males, that are no longer on that court. So you want to be watching and paying attention about who replaces them. And is it someone that you would ultimately support? We have to be very careful of that.
So now, the newer generation, they did get into the voting when President Obama was going in, and then obviously this last race that we had. But a lot of people tend to forget about their own, city and where they need to vote and the judges and things of that nature. So take an African-American male or female in their early 20s, and you go and you speak to them and they say, well, why should I vote for you? You're 39. Or how are you going to help me if I come up and get in trouble? Speak to them about the importance of voting.
Okay. So voting is pivotal. And I say it this way. When you don't have a nickel in your pocket, you have a currency, as long as you have not been disenfranchised. If you can vote, you can affect your community. So never think that doesn't matter. That's a currency that you can cash in for an effect. When you do that with regards to judge, what you're basically saying is that just in case, it's almost like an insurance policy, just in case I should end up down there. And mind you guys, judges don't only do criminal stuff. They do civil stuff too, which means non-criminal stuff, right? So, if you sue somebody for a car accident, or if someone, if there's a dispute regarding, a contract or something like that. The judges do that as well. You are basically voting on the way that you're going to be treated when you get down there. You're voting on the experience again of that judge who's saying, I understand what it's like to be a minority in Western New York. And we all know, let's be real with ourselves, Western New York is a very racist area, right? It is not the friendliest to minorities. So, but also there's another element to it. And I try and point this out. I'm setting, or I hope that I'd be setting an example, right? So when I say that I'm from the east side of Buffalo, born and raised, I'm saying I'm a product of this community and you're also a product of this community. So when you look and you say, oh, I think it's impressive he did this, he went here, yada, 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 no different than you are. You can do those same things.
Right.
So that 24-year-old will be, God willing, a 39-year-old at some point. And what does he do with the next 15 years? What does she do with the next 15 years? Well, one option is, are you interested in law school? One option is, do you want to be a judge? Because it's been done, it's being done, and it can be done. So I want to set that example for the next group who says, what are my options? They need to understand that judges are not only white. Judges are not only from other sides of Buffalo or from the suburbs. Judges come from the east side of Buffalo with the same experiences that they have. That's the message that I'd like to send to the 20-year-olds.
Wow, that's deep, and hopefully they hear you, and we get you down there in city court. Now I want to switch it up just a little bit. You mentioned that you were an engineer, and I just had to bring that back because my godson just graduated from Cornell with his engineering degree. Shout out to Jalen Keith. He went straight through from getting his bachelor's right on to his master's. So super proud of him. You switch gears. What made you do that? I mean, engineering in itself is huge, and then you started doing all this other stuff. What made you just keep going? Did you see something in the city that you said, I can do this and let me do this for my city, or you just was always a bookworm?
So part of me is actually no, and I'll say that I was good at math and science, but I wasn't a bookworm. To be honest with you, and it's crazy. I tell people this. I didn't get into books until I finished undergrad, and I had a space of time where no one was assigning me a book. It was the first time in my life where I was like, yo, I can learn what I want to learn. I can read what I want to read. And one thing I look back on was I didn't really get a ton of African-American history coming up. And so I was like, let me go get some of these books. Let me go get The Miseducation of the Negro. Let me go get, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Let me go get, all these different books, and that kind of spanned out into some other things afterward. And so I got curious, and I let that curiosity run. But with regard to some sort of cogent kind of thought that took me from engineering to MBA to law, when I finished Howard, my job opportunity was in Cleveland, Ohio. So I actually spent quite a bit of time in Ohio between working, get my MBA, and doing my law degree. At the time, some of my other classmates from Howard had actually gone on to law school already. And I talked to them about, what they were doing, what they were discussing. We get into these debates about this, and this. And I thought, this is really interesting. But I was a little apprehensive, like, yo, can I handle all the reading that a lawyer has to do, or what I hear in law school about? Like, am I capable of doing that? And, finally I said, I'm going to take the LSAT. That's the entrance examination for law. And I'm going to give this thing a shot. And I applied to UB. I applied to Case Western Reserve. I applied to Ohio State, and I got in. And the rest is history. And the takeaway that I want you guys to have there, you got to be in it to win it. Sometimes you just got to take a shot. You're capable of more than you think you are. And even going back to this judge thing, that's what I want to be telling the 20-year-old. That's what I want to be telling the 16-year-old that comes in front of me. I know this is what you've done thus far. I get that. Be it good, bad, indifferent, you have options. You have choices moving forward. You can do these things. You may not have imagined them yet, but we go work on that, right? We're going to work on that to try and get you to expand your mind and start doing some more positive things, because at the end of the day, you're capable of more than you think.
And to see someone that looked like you, they can relate to. So that, kudos to you. I mean, I'm in awe. I really am. I'm in awe hearing you speak. knowing everything that you have done and what you plan to do is just great. I mean, really, really great. So we're coming up on the weekend of Juneteenth
Hmm.
and Father's Day. Two great things that are coming up. What do you think of the Juneteenth and it being made a holiday and things of that nature? What are your plans for this weekend? And talk a little bit about Juneteenth.
So Juneteenth, interesting enough, the anniversary will be on the 19th. So actually
Mhm.
this year it literally falls evenly in terms of when the individuals in Texas actually found out um, that they received their freedom. I'm speaking at the event at All High. So I have a 15-minute slot to talk a little bit about Juneteenth, and I've been trying to formulate my plan of what I want to speak about. And I think um, I'm going to speak about the notion of choosing a fight, but being sure that a fight needs to take place. And my thought to that is you've got these individuals, you've got our forefathers who struggled through this thing, right? Perseverance, resilience, putting up a fight, literally going into the Civil War and putting up a fight for freedom.
Mhm.
You fast forward, and obviously a very different space and time than it was then, but so
Right.
many things to still accomplish, so many fights to still take on. And the notion that whether it be voting rights, whether it be education, whether it be economic empowerment, whether it be uh, health, there's so many things that our community still needs to work for, so many fights to still take on. And so
Mhm.
my thought
Mhm.
to the individuals who will be listening, hopefully on Saturday, is pick a fight for this next year. Between now and next year, pick one fight and get in the fray, mix it up, cause some good trouble. Let's do something, because
Love it.
every group is going to have to take up a fight. And if you don't, as one of my colleagues says, if you're not at the table, you're what's on the menu, basically. So we have a choice to choose that position.
Wow. I
Mhm.
love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, I'll be listening. I mean, like I said, I've been in WOW this whole interview. You are amazing. I wish you nothing but the best. Listen, guys, make sure in November you vote for Joel C. Moore. He is the man to be in for city court judge. So before we end this interview, which has been totally awesome, whatever things happen, what have you, if you don't get in, can we expect to see you again in another 10 years? Because you're still young.
um, so I think, and I'll be somewhat, I guess, vulnerable right now. Like it does, you do take a hit from some of this stuff, because you are putting yourself out there, and when you're not initially successful, that can be frustrating. But I think you've got to keep perspective on why you're doing these things. And the reality of the situation is, win or lose, that need is still going to be there
Right.
in the community. And again, I'm a product of the community, and I owe. So I have an obligation to give back. And so I would say, yes, you'll see me again if I'm not successful this time, because it's incumbent upon me to give back and try and develop the next group just like I was developed.
Awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so very much for taking time out. I will be following you. I will be listening to you on next Saturday. Happy early Father's Day to you.
Thank you so
And
much.
again, I appreciate you taking time to speak with us tonight.
Absolutely. If you guys want to check out my website, I'm at moreforbuffalo.com. That's MOORE for buffalo.com. And you guys can correspond with me there, or I'm on Facebook. So again, I appreciate you so much. Good talking to you guys.
Absolutely. You guys heard it. Look for that face, Joel C. Moore. Look for that name and make sure you support him because he's doing great things for the youth and for all of us. So again, thank you so much. And as always, like I say, thank you all, my studio audience, my virtual studio audience, for joining me. You didn't have to, but I am so happy that you did. I look forward to giving you this information every single week. So hopefully you continue to join Diva Talks live show. I just brought my Diva Talk live show cut today. I was thinking about my baby girl, and she is the one who purchased this for me. So, again, thank you so very much. And as I always say, Find your happy space. And when you do, you make sure you stay there. Don't you dare let nobody take you out. I promise you, it's a great place to be. So until next week, have yourself a blessed evening. See ya.